first, forgiving quickly. That's what made you good. That's what made you lovable. So you did all of that. You poured and gave and stayed soft in a world that kept trying to harden you. And somewhere along the way, people started showing you a different truth. That no matter how good you are, someone will find a way to treat you like you're disposable. You started noticing that the more available you became, the more invisible you felt. You gave your time, your energy, your support, and somehow you were the one getting walked over. The one who kept getting interrupted, ignored, overlooked, and you wondered, how did I end up here? Here's how. When you show up with your heart wide open and you don't set a line, people assume there isn't one. When you make excuses for others, but never for yourself, people assume your needs don't matter. When you say it's fine, every time it's not, people assume you'll always be okay. That's how it starts. It doesn't happen overnight. Disrespect trickles in through the small cracks you didn't notice at first. The texts they stop replying to, the help they ask for without ever offering any back, the way they only call when they need something, the way they laugh a little too hard when the joke is at your expense. And every time you let it go, it grows. Every time you stay quiet, it becomes normal. And it's not because you're weak. It's not because you don't know what's happening. Deep down, you do. You feel it. The exhaustion, the frustration, the quiet resentment. You feel it build in your chest, but you keep swallowing it down because you think, maybe if I stay kind enough, long enough, they'll start treating me right. But here's the truth. Kindness that comes without boundaries isn't seen as kindness, it's seen as permission. The people who take from you without thanking you aren't confused. They've just learned you won't stop them. You're nice. You're understanding. You forgive again and again and again. So what's the answer? It's not becoming cold. It's not turning bitter. It's not changing who you are at the core. It's learning how to be kind with a backbone. Because the strongest kind of kindness is the kind that knows when to say no. When to say, I love you, but I won't let you treat me this way. When to say, this isn't okay with me. When to say, just because I care doesn't mean I'll be your doormat. People will push. That's human nature. They'll see how far they can go. And it's not your job to stop being who you are. It's your job to teach them how to treat you, to show them that you're kind because you choose to be, not because you have to be. Respect comes when people know you have limits. Respect comes when your yes means something because you're not afraid to say no. Respect comes when people realize that your time is valuable, your energy is sacred, and your kindness is a gift, not a guarantee. So, if people have started treating you like you don't matter, maybe it's time to ask yourself, what have I been allowing? Have I been staying quiet when I should have spoken up? Have I been giving more than I receive? And have I been confusing love with self-abandonment? Because love without self-respect is not love. It's sacrifice. And if you keep sacrificing your peace to make others comfortable, you'll wake up one day and realize you don't even recognize yourself anymore. Kindness should never cost you your identity. Kindness should never mean silencing your needs. Kindness should never feel like being invisible in your own life. You can be kind and firm. You can be soft and strong. You can be understanding and still have standards. It's not either / or, it's both. So the next time someone disrespects you and you feel that familiar urge to excuse it, stop and remind yourself, I am not here to be liked by everyone. I am here to be respected by myself first. Because once you respect yourself enough to stop allowing disrespect from others, something shifts. You'll lose some people, sure. But the ones who stay, they'll value you. They'll show up for you. They'll understand that your kindness isn't a weakness, it's a strength. One that's rare, one that's real, and one that finally knows how to protect itself. Kindness is often mistaken for weakness, and that's one of the most painful lessons people learn in relationships and friendships and in life. When you lead with your heart, when you choose to give others grace, time, forgiveness, or a second chance, it's easy for people to look at that and think you're doing it because you don't have a choice. They assume that your patience means you don't have the power to walk away. They assume that your gentleness means you're scared of confrontation. They don't see your kindness as strength. They see it as an opportunity, an opening, a loophole, a place where they can bend rules, say things they shouldn't say, take what they shouldn't take, and do what they want without facing any real consequences. This misunderstanding comes from the way society often praises loudness over quiet, dominance over humility, and control over compassion. We're trained to believe that strength always looks like volume, that to be strong, you need to be sharp, cold, unbothered, and ready to push back with force. So when someone shows up with softness, when someone listens before speaking, when someone says, I understand, instead of you're wrong, people misread that. They assume if you're not defending yourself aggressively, then maybe you don't see what's happening. Maybe you don't mind. Maybe you're just too soft to fight back. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Because real kindness, true, intentional, grounded kindness requires more strength than most people realize. It takes strength to stay gentle in a harsh world. It takes courage to choose understanding over revenge. It takes real discipline to show grace to someone who doesn't deserve it. And it takes emotional maturity to keep giving love in a world that keeps trying to break it out of you. But people don't see that side of it. They see the result, not the struggle behind it. They see the soft response, not the strength it took to choose it. The problem is, when this misunderstanding happens over and over again, it starts shaping the way others treat you. They don't think twice before dismissing your opinions. They take your silence as permission. They assume you'll keep showing up no matter how many times they disappoint you. And because you're kind, you give them another chance, you make excuses for them, you tell yourself they didn't mean it, or they're just going through something, and maybe they are, but at some point the pattern becomes clear. They're not confusing your kindness with weakness by accident. They're relying on it. When someone believes your kindness means you won't defend yourself, they will keep testing how far they can push you. And if they never hear a no, if they never feel the weight of your boundaries, they'll keep mistaking your generosity for obligation. They'll keep confusing your forgiveness for permission. And slowly, your kindness becomes the very reason they stop respecting you. Not because kindness isn't valuable, but because they never saw its strength. That's why kindness must be paired with boundaries. Not because you want to become cold, but because you want your kindness to mean something. You want it to be a conscious choice, not something people can manipulate. When you show people that your kindness comes from power, not powerlessness, it changes the way they treat you. It reminds them that you're not kind because you don't see what's going on. You're kind because you choose to rise above it. But if they keep confusing that with weakness, you also have the strength to step back, speak up, or walk away. That's what real kindness looks like. Soft on the surface, strong underneath. Overgiving breeds entitlement. And this is where many people who lead with kindness find themselves stuck. At first, it feels good to give. It feels fulfilling to be the one who shows up, the one who says yes, the one who makes sacrifices. It makes you feel like you're doing the right thing, like you're dependable, trustworthy, valuable. But the trouble starts when giving becomes your default and receiving becomes rare. When the balance of any relationship starts to lean entirely on your willingness to pour, and the other person simply gets used to taking, what happens is subtle. You start helping out without being asked. You anticipate other people's needs before they speak them. You stretch your schedule, your budget, and your emotional energy just to keep someone else comfortable. And the more you give, the more people start expecting it. Not appreciating it, expecting it. What used to be a kind gesture becomes your new job description. What used to be a favor becomes a responsibility. And the moment you hesitate, the moment you don't show up with the same energy, people begin to question you. They don't say thank you. They say, why not? They don't offer support in return. They say, you've always done it. What's different now? This is how entitlement forms. Not overnight, not through malice or cruelty, but through repetition. You train people, often unknowingly, how to treat you by how much of yourself you're willing to give without asking for anything back. If you constantly give your time without setting boundaries, people start thinking your time doesn't matter. If you constantly forgive without honest conversation, people assume they can keep hurting you and you'll just take it. If you make yourself available 24/7, people forget you're a person with your own needs. You become a resource, a convenience, a guarantee. And then one day you notice it. You notice how heavy your kindness has become. You start feeling burnt out, but you're afraid to stop giving because that's the role everyone expects from you now. You fear that if you say no, people will be disappointed, or worse, they'll leave. So you keep giving, not out of joy anymore, but out of fear. You keep saying yes because it's safer than dealing with someone's frustration or rejection. And that's the moment your kindness stops being love and starts becoming self-betrayal. What people often miss is that overgiving is not sustainable. Eventually, it turns into quiet resentment. You begin to feel angry, but mostly at yourself for giving so much, for not speaking up, for letting it get this far. And that resentment doesn't make you mean or bitter. It makes you human. You're not wrong for wanting balance. You're not wrong for wishing someone would ask how you're doing for once. You're not wrong for hoping someone would think of you without needing something from you. To stop the cycle, you have to start by understanding that your value is not measured by how much you give to others. You are not worthy because you carry other people's burdens. You are worthy because you exist with or without constantly proving your usefulness. When you begin to pull back, not to punish, but to protect, you'll see who truly values you. Because those who love you for your heart won't demand constant access to it. They won't need you to exhaust yourself just to feel close to you. They'll appreciate your kindness without needing to drain it. Overgiving might earn temporary approval, but it will never earn lasting respect. That only comes when people see your giving as a gift, not a transaction. Not something they're entitled to, but something they're honored to receive. And that shift starts when you believe your energy, your time, and your kindness are precious enough to be protected. Lack of boundaries invites misuse. And this is one of the hardest truths to accept when you see yourself as a good, kind-hearted person. You think that keeping the peace means keeping quiet. You think that being easygoing means being agreeable. You think that loving someone means letting things slide. But every time you say yes when your heart says no, every time you stay silent when your spirit is heavy, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're teaching someone how to treat you. You're showing them what you'll tolerate, what you'll accept, what you'll endure. Boundaries are not walls. They're not about pushing people away. They're not about being cold or distant or unavailable. Boundaries are clarity. Boundaries are the language of self-respect. They say, this is what I need to stay healthy. This is what I require to feel safe. This is what's okay with me, and this is what's not. But when you don't have those boundaries in place, or when you're too afraid to enforce them, people start writing their own rules for how to interact with you. They text you at any hour, and you respond even though it disrupts your rest. They cancel plans last minute, and you act like it's fine even though you're hurt. They speak to you in a way that makes your stomach tighten, and you laugh it off even though your soul knows better. You let it slide, you rationalize it, you convince yourself it's not a big deal, but it is. Because over time, these small moments of self-abandonment turn into a pattern, a habit, a way of existing where your needs shrink and their comfort expands. When you don't communicate your limits, people will assume you don't have any. Not because they're evil or malicious, but because you haven't shown them where the line is. And if you never enforce that line, they'll keep stepping over it, sometimes without even realizing it. People don't always know they're crossing a boundary until you show them, until you say, that doesn't work for me. Until you say, please don't speak to me that way. Until you say, I care about you, but I need space. The fear, of course, is that setting boundaries will push people away, that they'll get upset, that they'll call you selfish or dramatic or sensitive. But here's the thing, the people who truly respect you will respect your boundaries. And the people who get angry when you say no, they were benefiting from your lack of boundaries in the first place. They liked you better when you didn't speak up, when you gave without pause, when you adjusted, accommodated, and avoided rocking the boat. But living like that comes with a cost. You lose your sense of peace, your confidence, your voice. You find yourself in relationships where your kindness is taken for granted because you never required anything different. And then you start wondering if maybe it's you. Maybe you're too sensitive. Maybe you're asking for too much, but you're not. You're just finally starting to listen to the part of you that's tired of being misused. Boundaries are not rejection, they're direction. They teach people how to love you in a way that doesn't hurt. And when you stop being afraid to set them, you stop inviting people to misuse your kindness. You stop feeling like you're being pulled in every direction. You stop feeling guilty for protecting your energy because now your kindness is protected. Now your heart is guarded, not with a wall, but with wisdom. And that makes all the difference. People test limits. That's just part of human nature. Whether they're doing it consciously or unconsciously, most people will push a little to see how far they can go. It might start small, a sarcastic comment, a late reply, a missed obligation. They watch your reaction. If you brush it off, they take note. They do it again. Still no pushback. Now the behavior escalates. And before long, you're in a situation where someone is consistently crossing the line and you're consistently shrinking yourself to keep the peace. Not because you don't notice, but because somewhere along the line, you were taught that being kind means not making things uncomfortable. But the truth is, kindness doesn't mean becoming a doormat. People test your boundaries to see if they exist, They test your limits to see if they matter. And if you never enforce them, if you keep smiling through the disrespect, the lateness, the backhanded compliments, the emotional neglect, they'll think they're allowed. They won't see it as disrespect. They'll see it as routine, and you'll keep wondering why people treat you like you don't matter, not realizing that your silence has become their permission slip. This is why it's important to show people early on where the line is, not in anger, not in shame, but with calm, clear, unwavering strength. People need to know what your standards are. They need to know that while you are kind, you're also not going to let anyone walk over that kindness. That while you're patient, you're not a dumping ground for someone else's chaos. That while you're understanding, you also have expectations. When you don't speak up, people assume you're okay. They assume you're not bothered. They assume you're fine with how things are. But deep down, you're not. Deep down, you're exhausted. You're hurt. You're frustrated that no one seems to see how much you give, but they don't see it because you haven't said it. You haven't shown it. You haven't made it clear that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And the more you let it slide, the more people lean into that space, thinking they're entitled to it, thinking it's just who you are, someone who doesn't mind. But people need correction. They need awareness. Not everyone is trying to take advantage of you. Some people just don't realize the weight they're putting on you until you say something. Until you speak up, until you gently but firmly draw the line and say, that doesn't sit right with me. Please don't speak to me like that. I'm not okay with this dynamic. And when you do, you'll start to see people for who they really are. Some will respect the boundary. Some will leave. Some will push back even harder. And that's valuable information, because how someone reacts to your limit tells you everything you need to know about how they value your presence. If your kindness is only appreciated when it comes without conditions, that's not love, that's convenience. If they only show up when you're available on their terms, that's not connection, that's control. And you deserve more than that. So the next time someone pushes, don't just absorb it. Don't just swallow the discomfort. Recognize it for what it is, a test. And instead of passing it with silence, respond with strength. Not aggression, but truth. Because when people realize your kindness comes with self-respect, they start treating you differently. Not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated it. And in that moment, you stop being someone people test and start being someone they respect. Silence can look like approval, and that's something many kind-hearted people don't realize until it's too late. You think staying quiet is the mature thing to do. You think it's the peaceful choice, the unselfish route, the path of least resistance. But what you may not see is that when you don't speak up, when you don't correct the behavior, when you don't express what hurts, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're sending a message. And that message often says, this is okay, even when it's not, even when it's breaking your spirit. People don't always listen to your heart. They respond to your actions or your lack of them. If someone says something disrespectful and you stay quiet, they don't assume you're being polite. They assume you agree. If they take you for granted and you keep showing up, they don't think you're being selfless. They think you're okay with being second. When you don't correct them, when you don't address what's wrong, when you let things pass without a word, they're not likely to change, not because they're evil, but because they think everything is fine. That's the dangerous part about silence. It protects their comfort, but it sacrifices your truth, and over time, it becomes your normal. You convince yourself that speaking up will make things worse, that expressing how you feel will cause distance, that asking for better will label you as needy, dramatic, or too sensitive, so you stay quiet. And every time you do, you disappear a little, not to them, but to yourself. What starts as kindness becomes self-erasure. You let things slide because you don't want tension. You absorb the discomfort so others don't have to. But the problem with that is clear. They keep being comfortable, and you keep being crushed. And slowly, the relationship becomes one-sided. They laugh a little too loud at your expense, and you say nothing. They flake on their promises, and you tell them it's fine. They cross your emotional boundaries, and you explain it away as them just being stressed. But deep down, something inside of you is screaming for honesty, for the truth to be said out loud. The truth is that silence builds resentment, not just toward them, but toward yourself. You start blaming yourself for not having the courage to speak. You wonder how you ended up in this place where everyone else's needs come before your own. And yet, you keep hoping they'll notice, that they'll feel this shift in your energy, that they'll somehow realize how deeply you're affected. But most of the time, they don't. Because the world is noisy, and in all that noise, silence doesn't register. People hear what you say, not what you suffer through quietly. If you want to change how people treat you, you have to speak, even if your voice shakes, even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it's not received well, because truth is not always easy, but it's necessary. It's what separates temporary peace from long-term healing. It's what transforms being nice into being real. You're not responsible for how someone reacts to your honesty, but you are responsible for expressing what's true to you. And when you do, you'll begin to notice who listens, who adjusts, who values your boundaries. Speaking up doesn't make you unkind. It makes your kindness honest. It gives your voice weight. It tells people, I still care, but I also care about me. And when that message is finally heard, everything begins to shift. Because people don't change because of your silence. They change when your truth becomes louder than your fear. Kindness must be paired with strength, because kindness on its own, without boundaries or self-respect, can quickly turn into self-neglect. You were never meant to be kind at the cost of your peace. You were never meant to love others so deeply that you forget how to love yourself. But when kindness is all you give and never something you protect, people start to believe that you exist solely to make their lives easier. They stop seeing you as a whole person with needs, limits, and a voice. They see you as support, as service, as someone who always says yes, always shows up, always understands, and never asks for anything in return. But strength changes that. Strength reminds people that your kindness is not an accident. It's a decision, a powerful, intentional choice you make every single time. You are kind not because you have to be, but because you choose to be. And you choose it from a place of self-awareness, not self-sacrifice. That's what separates true kindness from weakness. Weakness bends because it doesn't know it can stand. Kindness with strength stands tall and firm, even when it's offering a hand. You've probably been in moments where you held back your truth, not because you didn't see the problem, but because you don't want to upset anyone. You've stayed in